Welcome to episode 3 of the Oddball Podcast, a podcast made by neurodivergents for neurodivergents, creating a safe space for us to be seen and heard. Hi, my name is Brittany, and I am your host for this week's episode. And I want to talk about Audisha. Audisha is the ADHD woman that lives inside of me. If you are not aware and have not tuned in to episode 1 or 2 of the podcast, I am a self late diagnosed ADHD woman, and I just want to talk a little bit about Audicia, the ADHD side of me. It is so interesting to now have more language to explain that I literally feel like I am like the perfect split between the right and the left brain, and I attribute the right side of my brain to my ADHD side. She's the wild woman. She's raw, she's vulnerable, she's curious, she's creative, and in her darker moments, she can be dangerous, when she's unchecked, when she's uncared for, and when she's been neglected. But at her best, she is the best sidekick that a girl could ever ask for in this lifetime. And when she is healthy, we have a good old time. Now, I'm sure that my ADHD listeners can relate to this, but my autism and my ADHD are not at play all the time. Sometimes I am autistic dominant, and sometimes I am ADHD dominant, and at other times, my ADHD is working together with my autism, and when they work together, it is some of the most amazing things that I'm able to create and tap into. Nevertheless, this episode we are focused on Audisha, okay? And when she is healthy, as I stated before, we have a good old time. And I'm going to give you an example of how she likes to come out and play. I went to an event and was gifted a blank canvas of a sketch outline of a Nike tennis shoe. And I'm going to put a picture of it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. It'll be a snapshot on the screen. And I got it from this event. And at the time, I was not in that creative space, but I knew that at some point I would want to tap into her. And I held on to it for many months. And one day I just woke up and I was like, it's that time. Let's paint and let's create. And me and my ADHD side just tapped in, and I was flooded with creative ideas and inspirations of how I wanted to paint her. I had not planned out anything of how to complete the painting before now. But what's so fun about the ADHD side of me is when I get into my creative bag, I literally get like downloads. I get creative inspiration and I'm flooded with it. And so this is what happened when I was moved to paint my picture. And, I got all the paints and my paint supplies, and I had fun with this canvas for about 2 weeks. And what you see right here is just phase one of the completion of the canvas. And she is so much fun when she comes out in a healthy way, and I get these types of creative inspirations all the time. And to be frank, these are the moments that I literally live for. It gives me so much energy, and is a source of life force for me. Now, let's I don't want to mislead you because she definitely has a dark side, okay? And an unhealthy version of her. And when I'm feeling the angst of wanting to be impulsive and compulsive, it's typically because of a few, well, it can be a myriad of reasons, but some of the ones that I am aware of that has sparked this unhealthy expression in the past is when I'm sick, when I'm stressed, when I'm anxious, when I'm bored, when I'm not getting enough sleep, when I'm dehydrated or hungry, when I have not allowed myself to express creatively, when I am overexerted and near burnout, and when my life is filled with activities that is draining my life force, it's not giving me any type of vitality. This triggers an unhealthy expression of my ADHD. And what it may look like on the outside is my personal spaces that I occupy, like my car, my desk at work, my bedroom, um, etc. Is messy, it's dirty. Not dirty, but messy, it's junky, no order, no organization. Now, to bring my autism back into the conversation, my autistic side has built out these amazing systems in my physical environments in order for me to maintain order and organization, right? But when I am in the grip of an unhealthy ADHD episode, I don't have the tools. I don't have access to those tools, right? I don't have the focus to get the environment back together. Um, and I don't have access to those systems that I have created in order to restore order, right? Other ways that I know that I am in this ADHD grip is I am not able to get focused. I am highly irritable. I become impulsive, and the impulsivity has no direction and no reason. Okay. I have mental chaos. I am not able to restore clarity and organization in my mental thoughts. Um, Not only does my autism create systems in my physical environment, but I have very detailed and complex mental um, organizational models too that I use on a daily basis to keep my thoughts straight, because my ADHD side produces a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas, and my autistic side organizes it and has a great recall system when I need it. But when I am in an unhealthy ADHD grip, I do not have access to this, and my mental space is all over the place. And in my most unhealthy states of this version of myself, I even get bouts of paranoia because I cannot rely on these systems that I've created to keep myself feeling secure, safe, and stable. And I now don't feel as safe in my thoughts and in my environment because there's so much chaos. Um, I I also get very impatient, and then I go off into these unproductive loops, where I'm not efficient. Again, some of the best things that my autistic side has created, I don't have access to these when I am in this unhealthy state, and so I go off into these routines of being all over the place, right? For instance, normally I go to the grocery store, make a detailed list, get everything that I need, and then leave and return, and to return back with everything, right? With everything that I need. When I'm in one of these unproductive loops, my lists tend to be incomplete. I really need 15 things from the store, but I can only recall 5 things that I need, and I don't have the mental bandwidth to go take inventory of anything. I'm just literally relying on the 3/4 of a spoon that I am dealing with at that particular time, and I become highly inefficient and unproductive in this state. And now, one of the things that I also realized that I relied on heavy, um, because I'm gonna pivot a little bit. I'm gonna talk about dopamine. So, if you are not aware, um, getting dopamine highs is just a part of having ADHD. And it's a part of the chemical makeup in our brains, and we need it. And, for me, when I was a teenage girl, I went through what um, I would call it my bad boy era. This is how I got my dopamine trip, where I was, casually entertaining boys and teenagers that were not good for me, but they fed my adrenaline need. I saw them as, the forbidden fruit. Because just a little bit of background, I was not allowed to date, talk to boys on the phone, etc., have a boyfriend in my teenage years. And so I desired to have that romantic connection. And so I had to get it how I could, which was to have these, short-term casual relationships with these bad boys. And when I tell you that my dopamine fix was getting fixed, with adrenaline rushes, with the novelty, with the adventure, with a little bit of danger, a little bit of risk, and with all of that also came, heartbreak, disappointment, trauma, and drama. And I have had a hard time with with this part of my life, and really just trying to figure out the why. And it's so interesting now to assess this part of my life from like an ADHD lens. I needed this, My ADHD was searching for a way to get her needs met, and this was the best option that she had at that particular time with her circumstances, right? And with these experiences, the wisdom that I gained from this was me, I have to, number one, figure out healthier ways to get my dopamine fixed, right? Because what I know now is that my autistic side needs stability, security, and safety. And in order to ensure that my autistic side has its needs met, I have to figure out ways to get my dopamine high without sacrificing the feeling of safety, security, and stability for myself, right? So, some of the healthier ways that I get my dopamine fix is um, shopping. And the clearance section of a grocery store can give me goosebumps and a high like a drug, okay? And it is so fun for me to just be going on my normal grocery run, and I come across the clearance section and I just stop and I have a ball. I look through all of the items and see all the products that I might not have seen before, and to see the heavy discounts that they're marked down as. And um maybe even select a purchase. But the thing is that I don't need to make a purchase. It is the experience of literally looking through all of these items that seem cool and fun and unique, and have the possibility of finding something that I actually like and take it home with me. Another way that I get my dopamine high is to go into my favorite clothing store. The one that comes to mind is J. Crew Factory. And I love going in there after they have made their seasonal switch. And the store is immaculate, organized, and all of the new clothes are laid out perfectly and hung up perfectly. And I go through and I run my fingers over the fabrics and soak in the colors and the styles and the mannequins that are outfitted down, and it is just a dopamine high like none other. And the icing on the cake, when I go in the store and experience this, clothing stores typically have the clearance section at the very back of the store. So after I've had all of the fun with the new stuff, now we got the old goodies at the back that I can go through, and I typically find an item to take home with me. Okay? So, you know, what's interesting for me with being aware of the ADHD side of me is she deserves to be taken care of like any other part of me. She deserves the novelty. She deserves the exploration, the adrenaline, the dopamine hits that she needs in order to be healthy and balanced, right? My ADHD side, Aldisha, she craves feeling alive. And the novelty and exploration and adrenaline and dopamine allows her to feel alive. Now, with the experience that I've had in my life, this desire and need to feel alive cannot come at the cost of creating chaos in my life. You know, I cannot trade excitement for the stability, safety, and security that my autism needs, right? So I intentionally try new things on the regular, new restaurants, new routes to and from routine places that I go to all the time. I might, and not might, I scope out 3 to 4 locations of the same store that I like to go to, and I rotate those locations to incorporate some of that novelty, right? And I love a good impromptu day trip. I remember January 2nd of last year, this was the day after New Year's. I took a 1 day trip to South Texas. I rented a car and I drove down there and I stayed in the hotel for a day and I just made, an adventure out of it. And I felt so invigorated and satisfied and fulfilled. Um, Aldisha had a blast, okay? And so I seek challenge, but without the drama, okay? So, I know that some of her traits can seem inappropriate, when I'm talking about needing dopamine hits and the adrenaline and all of that. And I will agree that it can be expressed in an unhealthy way. However, she brings, in her healthy state, she brings so much color to my life. I cannot imagine, living life without her. I love her. She brings spice, and what I am now doing is continuing to learn her. This is a side of me that I would attribute to some of my more dark shadow traits, and I'm learning to bring her into the light and to, cultivate the healthy version of her, and for me to express her in a conscious, healthy way as much as I can, the best way that I can. I do understand that she is lovable, and I learn to take care of her better and better all the time. I just want to remind you before I get out of here that us being ADHD and or autistic and neurodivergent does not make us other. It makes us human. And until next time, you take care, and I'll be talking to you soon.